Today I'm going to be putting the Apple Watch Ultra up against the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic and try to answer the question of whether the Galaxy Watch 6 can live up to being the best Android smartwatch you can buy. Oh, and I'm going to be doing this without mentioning that word, ecosystem. Starting with the screen itself. Now, both of these are rated at 2000 nits peak brightness, and I actually found both watches to hit over 2000 nits. So on the Galaxy Watch, you have to have auto brightness enabled for it to hit those numbers. But with that enabled on the Galaxy Watch, I did see over 2000 nits when using just like a white watch face, but I only saw around 1500 nits on the Apple Watch Ultra, unless I fired up the torch, and only then did I see over 2000 nits. Both of these have crystal sapphire glass, which is reassuring against scratching the glass. Now, the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, of course, has the rotating bezel, which can provide even more protection, but it's made from stainless steel versus the Apple Watch Ultra's titanium, which is much harder. Now, in terms of its function, the rotating bezel works almost in the same way as Apple's digital crown. You can twist it to scroll up and down. Now, you can't push it, the rotating bezel in, or like click it in like you do with the digital crown. But in terms of the actual screen tech here, now you get a 60 Hz screen on both of these, but the Apple Watch Ultra is an LTPO display, which can ramp down as low as 1 Hz to be a bit more efficient with the battery life. And to top this off, in terms of the build quality, you get IP68 water resistance with the Watch 6 Classic and a combined IP6X rating, plus up to 100 meters water resistance, though Apple tells you not to take it beyond 40 meters. So all in all, in terms of the screen and the build quality, I'm going to call a draw here, as for most casual users who want a smartwatch, they're both pretty solid here, and each watch has some strengths of their own in their category. Battery life, though, is always a metric that everyone really cares about. Like, no one wants to be charging their watch every day, and not many of these watches nowadays will go that long without needing to charge. The Apple Watch Ultra does have a bigger battery at 542 milliamp hours compared to 425 on the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic, so it's around about 25% smaller. Slightly frustratingly, last year's Galaxy Watch 5 Pro did go a few days without charging, but this year's Galaxy Watch 6 and Watch 6 Classic can only go around about 36 hours on a single charge, whereas the Apple Watch Ultra does beat this, with stretching sometimes to 2 to even 3 days. But I wanted to do some direct comparisons here to show you what specific tasks on the watches do to the battery, and also because I noticed that Apple in general has a habit of staying at 100% for a very long time to make you think that the battery is doing really, really well, but after a while it will just catch up with the other devices. So all of these tests weren't done with either watch at 100%. They were at most, I think, 90% charged each time, most of the time even less than that. So starting off with a workout. So a 30-minute workout on both watches. On the Galaxy Watch 6, consumed around 6% of the battery, whereas on the Apple Watch Ultra, it consumes just 3% of the battery. Now, next up, if you want to leave the house with just your watch on you and leave your phone at home, so both of these connected to cellular and use it for calls and texts and all sorts, this is usually a pretty quick way to drain the battery. And I remember actually forgetting my iPhone once a while ago whilst working my old job and thinking like, hey, it's cool, I've got my cellular enabled on my watch, only to find out that it was dead by lunchtime. So to test this one out, we started at 64% on the Galaxy Watch 6 and 85% on the Apple Watch Ultra. And after just 1 hour of standby use on cellular, other than a couple of test phone calls I made to check it was actually connected to cellular properly, after 1 hour, we are down 9% on the Galaxy Watch and 6% on the Apple Watch Ultra. So extrapolating that out, that gives you around 11 hours of pure cellular use on the Galaxy Watch versus 16 on the Apple Watch Ultra. Again, both of these, that will be on a full charge. But remember again, that's with no actual use, so the drain is likely to be faster. In terms of standby, so not using the watch, just having it on your wrist and, running this test for 6 hours, the Apple Watch used 9% of battery over 6 hours versus the Galaxy Watch 6 used double that at 18% over 6 hours. And then for sleep tracking overnight, the battery dropped by 9% on the Apple Watch Ultra versus 14% on the Galaxy Watch. Now, overall, this is an unfair test. Yes, the Apple Watch Ultra has a bigger battery, but it also seems to be way more efficient than the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic. Considering the Apple Watch Ultra's battery is 25% bigger than the 6 Classic, but in some tasks we're seeing the Galaxy Watch can consume sometimes double that of the Apple Watch Ultra, depending on your use case. So the win in this category goes to the Apple Watch Ultra. But how do these watches compare when it comes to probably one of the biggest reasons that, well, many of us wear one of these watches, and that is fitness. Both of these watches sport many of the same sensors, from temperature, ECG, blood pressure. Now, starting off with workouts, the good news here is that both watches here have a huge range of workout types, and all of them give you a decent level of information: your heart rate, your max heart rate, your average heart rate, what workout zone you're in, and just much, much more. Now, there are a few areas where the Apple Watch Ultra beats the Watch 6. There is 32 gig of storage over 16 gig of storage, so you'll be able to download and listen to more songs offline than the Galaxy Watch 6. You also get dual band GPS over single band, which is better if you run in like busier environments such as cities where locking onto a single GPS signal can be challenging. And if you do track running, then the Apple Watch Ultra can also detect this and prompt you for which lane you're running in, so it can actually track you more accurately on those runs. But there is one question hanging over my head, which is how accurate each of these devices are, like both for sleep tracking and for general fitness, because historically, the previous generation Galaxy Watch hasn't been the most accurate in my tests. Now, you also do get sleep tracking on both of these watches, so I've actually been really interested in tracking and improving my sleep for a very long time now, and I use and own both an Oura Ring and a Whoop strap to track my sleep every single night. And the one thing I've noticed across all of these devices is that none of them produce the same data. Now, all of them at some stage have made errors, and particularly in the time that I actually fall asleep. Now, there are some nights where I know that I'm still awake at a certain time, but the next morning I'll check my stats, and it will tell me that it detected me falling asleep before that time, so I know that's completely wrong. So the best thing I can say about sleep tracking, and really any fitness tracker in general, is to not focus on the data itself, but use whatever data it gives you as a starting point to improve on, and never underestimate how you're actually feeling each day. So just take all of these readings with a pinch of salt. You also get an altimeter on the Apple Watch Ultra and a depth reading when diving, but perspective is important here. Now, as a casual user, someone who wants a good smartwatch with fitness features, who typically runs, goes to the gym, maybe plays some sport or some form, for the typical user, I would call this a draw. If you are not a typical user and features like dual band GPS and track running modes mean something to you, then you might want to look at more of a fitness watch than a smartwatch, and things like the Garmin Fenix, which I made a video about up here. Touching on customization now, with the display on the Galaxy Watch, it is hands down the winner just because of Android being more of an open platform. There is just an endless list of watch faces that you can download and just customize to your heart content. The flip side to that is that the Apple Watch, as it currently stands, has a far larger selection of accessories. Like, you've got screen protectors and cases and nearly unlimited supply of third-party watch straps to match every occasion. And I actually love these straps from a company called Boundwork. So you will just never get bored of accessorizing your Apple Watch. But Galaxy Watch, when combined with a Galaxy phone, has routines, and these are so useful. Now, with routines, you can make things happen when doing certain things. Now, this one that I use on a almost daily basis is every time I start a weightlifting workout on my watch, then a series of events kicks off automatically. It will connect my Bluetooth headphones, enable active noise cancellation, and start playing a Spotify playlist, whilst also opening up my gym app on my phone. And when I stop the workout, it'll stop the music and enable transparency on my headphones so I can, hear and speak to people. Now, these routines are so powerful, and given that I'm trying to switch from Apple to Android, this is a real positive. So overall, I'm going to give the customization win to the Galaxy Watch 6 this time. In terms of voice assistant now Bixby versus Siri, it's no competition. Like, personally, Siri wins.
Turn the voice room blue.
I sent the request.
Turn the heating up to 21 degrees in the voice room.
To 21 degrees Celsius.
But you can replace Bixby with Google Assistant, which changes things. Except it would change things if I could get it to work on either of my Galaxy Watch 6s. Now, I think it has something to do with me using a personal account and a Google Workspace account on my phone, as that sometimes causes issues with other features on my phone. Now, I do like being able to just raise and speak to my Apple Watch for quick tasks like controlling lights or opening and unlocking doors. But Google Assistant has been overall more reliable for me on my other devices. But since I can't even get it working on my own watch, I can't do anything other than just voiding the score for this section with no clear winner. What I can talk about, though, is Apple Pay versus Samsung Pay. Now, after some initial problems I had earlier this year with some of my banks not supporting anything but Apple Pay, I'm happy to report that both of them finally are working well for me. Now this year, the Watch 6 also supports transit, so the ability to set a default card that you can just use to tap on your watch without actually waking it up, and also loyalty and store cards as well. So for the wallet, it is another draw. For voice calls, both are actually quite good, but let me know what you think in the comments down below.
So here is the speaker quality of the Apple Watch Ultra when listening from about 1 foot away. So for comparison, here is the speaker quality of the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic when listening from about 1 foot away.
So I'm going to call this one a draw, as both of them are plenty loud and clear enough to hear when you're on a call. Next up is how these watches perform day to day. And honestly, this is where the Watch 6 kind of falls apart for me. Now, this year we have the faster and updated Exynos 930 in the Watch 6 Classic versus Apple's S8 chip in the Ultra. And something I'm seeing constantly across both my Watch 6 Classic and my other regular Watch 6 is that when you first go to interact with the watch after you've not used it in a while, it's sometimes really unresponsive. Like so much so that I've tried fixing this by going into the developer settings to speed up the animation speed, but it's still just as bad. But that said, once you are using your watch and it's kind of like woken up to the fact you want to use it, things do speed up and they do improve. But I don't experience this at all on the Apple Watch Ultra. It is like 100% responsive 100% of the time with no delays whatsoever. And I feel this is a really important comparison to make because the way most people use their watches is just a few touches throughout the day. There's not really any extended use where we are constantly like interacting with our watches for anything more than a minute or so. When like running into a meeting, you might just mute or enable do not disturb. When receiving a message, you might just read the message and maybe send a reply. Or maybe you'll start a timer or use a torch or use it to find your phone. On the Galaxy Watch 6, I just found this really frustrating. And the only common reason I'm seeing for this is just a horrendously bad Exynos chip. I had an Exynos chip in last year's S22 Ultra, which was just a horribly slow mess of an experience. But compare that to this year's S23 Ultra with a Snapdragon chip, it is just a completely different and better experience. And one I was really hoping that it would come to the Galaxy Watch 6 this year. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until next year now to see if they can move that like Snapdragon type performance over to their own watch experience. Now, this is something that the Apple Watch is known for across all of its generations, from the cheapest Apple Watch to the most expensive. And that is just down to the speed and smoothness of interacting with it. It's just not a bottleneck on the Apple Watch. So an easy point to the Apple Watch Ultra here. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a fair comparison without factoring in the price here. And when the Apple Watch Ultra almost costs 2 times the amount of the Galaxy Watch 6, well, that's quite a difference. And so if pricing does come into this for you, it would be a hands down win to the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic here. So that leaves us tied as to which is the best smartwatch. Now, for Android in general, I do think perhaps the 6 is the best smartwatch for Android. It also has some features such as routines, which I really enjoy using, but I just cannot forgive the performance for being so bad as it is. For a 6th generation device as well, they should have this nailed by now. So for me, for now, it is back to wearing the Apple Watch and carrying both the phone I want to use and the phone I have to use. Until next time.